What's up, people of the internet? My name is Dabacab, and today we're going to take a look at the draft meta for Artifact. So, for those of you who don't know, artifact.io is an awesome website that has a ton of information available, and they just recently released a snapshot of the meta. Basically, they have a tool that allows players to test build a draft deck in Artifact. So, if you haven't tried it out, I definitely recommend it. It's a cool feature and it's a good way to practice for the game. But one of the really cool things they just did was they released information about the draft meta. So, essentially, every time someone picks, they get data for that, and they've just compiled all that information and shared it on their website. So we're going to go over today and discuss why people do this, what it could mean, how this could affect the meta and draft. Because I mean, once the game comes out, these decisions about how people draft their deck will more than likely translate over to the actual game, so it can give you an idea of what to expect. I'm not really sure what information we're going to get out of this, but it's worth looking into. So right off the bat, this is quite interesting. We have the most desirable card versus the least desirable card. The most desirable is Axe, not very surprising at all, and the least desirable is Mazzy, which I believe has a 0% click rate, 0% pick rate. So we're going to talk about why this is. So first of all, Axe is overall just a really strong hero. He has the perfect amount of armor to be immune to melee creep damage. He one-shots a ton of heroes in the game, and he's just an absolute beast. On top of that, his premier card is fairly decent. I mean, it's not the best in the world, but when you've got the best body in the game, the fact that you have a pretty decent card is automatically fantastic. So the other nice thing about Axe is that he's one of those heroes where you just put him down and you don't really need many other supporting cards, unlike, let's say Luna. With Luna's a really good card, but you need to support Luna by allowing her to survive damage, give her health, protect her as much as possible so that you can get eclipse charges. And Axe just doesn't need any of those supporting cards whatsoever. So for that reason, Axe is fantastic. And to be honest, I think a lot of the reason why this is because Axe is just cool. He's cool and he's fun, and there's just sort of a visceral appeal to big, stompy, huge units. And I think some of that translates over from Magic the Gathering. I mean, the color green in general, Magic the Gathering, is all about the big, stompy, deck archetype, and that's 1/5 of the game. And so Axe fully represents the big, stompy bruiser. So it's really interesting that across from him, the least desirable card in the game is Mazzy. I think Mazzy might actually be tied with Meepo, but why is that? Why is it that two heroes who are both pretty beefy, have lots of armor, would both be on opposite ends of the spectrum? So first off, one of the problems with Mazzy is that she's got 3 armor. And 3 armor is honestly a little bit excessive. 2 is the perfect amount because there aren't many units at all. I honestly can't, I would have to think of one that has 1 attack. I'm honestly not sure if there is a unit that has 1 attack. I'm sure there is. Ravenous Mass, that has 1 attack. So, 2 armor is the magic number. It's just enough to block melee creep. So that's the armor that everyone wants, right? It's the most efficient armor. But anything beyond 2 armor, I mean, obviously there are going to be situations where you're going to block 3 or more damage, so you kind of don't want to spend some of your card's budget on excessive armor. So, for example, if Mazzy were instead like a 7/2/6 or a 6/2/7, she would be better in general, just because she'd be more flexible, more viable. In fact, I think armor tends to be the more expensive stat, so the better comparison would probably be 7/2/7, I think. And on top of that, her premier card is not very overwhelming. It's an improvement with +1 armor to a tower, which is defensive, sure, but Vesture of the Tyrant does the job much better because it also gives armor to your tower, but it gives rapid deployment as well, and that's just spectacular. That's an incredibly beneficial effect, and you can put it on any hero, not just the red hero. So for that reason, I can understand why Mazzy isn't very popular. She almost feels more like a green hero, She's not a super beefy powerhouse. She's defensively oriented like a lot of green heroes, and her premier card is defensively oriented like a lot of green heroes. So for that reason, I don't think you're going to see a lot of Mazzys in future drafts, just because she's just not a very good card. And as I said, Mazzy is tied with Meepo. The issue with Meepo is that he does one thing very in like a very specialized way. So you kind of have to build your decks to support Meepo in a way that is actually beneficial to you, because you can't just throw Meepo and like, oh, I've got a blue in my deck, I may as well throw a Meepo, because you're just going to end up feeding. Because the issue with Meepo is when one Meepo dies, all the other Meepos die as well. So we don't really need to analyze this at all. It's not a surprise at all that Meepo is the least picked card, tied for the least picked card in drafts, just because Meepo is a terrible card to just throw into decks. You're just going to get destroyed. All right, so we're going to go down the list. I feel like this is just going to be a snapshot of just, the most popular heroes in the game. So Drow Ranger is exceptional. Her body is not very impressive, but giving all units +1 attack in every lane is spectacular. There's not a whole lot of effects that have cross lane potential, and the fact that Drow Ranger can affect both lanes is phenomenal. Plus her premier card, oh my god, her premier card is so good. 4 mana, silence all enemy heroes. Just that can completely allow you to swing a lane in your favor. So Drow, I honestly would have expected Drow Ranger to be number 1, but it's not terribly surprising that Axe beat her out. So Legion Commander is also really phenomenal. Her continuous effect is okay. The main thing about Legion Commander is Duel. Duel's just really strong. Red heroes are so phenomenally powerful. Being able to duel them against other units can give you such a huge advantage. So Legion Commander is a spectacular supporting red hero for any deck that has red in it. I mean, you've got Ursa, Axe, all kinds of really powerful red heroes. You throw in Legion Commander so that those red heroes can duel and completely dominate a lane. Canna and Luna, not too surprising. Canna has a really powerful premier card, Prey on the Weak. Summon a Hound of War for every damage unit. So the idea is you get your melee creep in the lane with her passive, because all melee creeps spawn in her lane. You get them damaged, and then you get a couple other units, and you get a super wide board, and get even wider because you just doubled up with Hounds of War, and then you basically swing in for massive damage. Plus, the other big appeal with Canna is that she's the beefiest blue hero in the game by far. And blue, of course, has the issue of survivability. Blue just wants to stay on the board long enough to get their really heavy, expensive spells, and Canna will help you do that. Speaking of heavy, expensive spells, we have Luna. Now, the thing to keep in mind with Luna, I mentioned this in yesterday's video, is that Luna combos with Luna because one Luna's passive affects all eclipses. So if you get an opportunity to grab Luna, just go ahead and do it. And then we've got Phantom Assassin, just good old reliable black hero. She slays heroes in combat and she slays heroes with her cards, so not surprising she's up there at all. It's interesting to note that there's at least one hero of each color represented, red, green, blue, and black, but black is the least popular. So this might mean that red and blue are sort of overrepresented. I'm curious if they've got like a color pie. No, actually, oh, that's super interesting. Looks like green is the most represented. What? So green is the most popular card picked, and yet they only have one hero represented. Okay, that's a really interesting discovery, actually. So then we come down to Time of Triumph. Not surprising, that is an absolute game ender. Mist of Avernus if you develop Mist of Avernus in turn 1, then you can quickly snowball away with a lane. Annihilation. Once again, I don't know how useful this is going to be, just because all these cards are cards that we all expected to be insanely powerful. Annihilation is just a staple in blue decks. Sure, it condemns your own units, but the fact that it hits things regardless of how much health they have, regardless of how much armor, is fantastic. Especially since with blue, you can kind of expect your blue heroes to die anyway. They're so vulnerable that if you annihilate your own blue hero, it's almost like you just skip to the point, because they're probably going to die in combat anyways. So the downside of Annihilation is super minor. Then we have Lycan. He has decent body, decent stats, but the big thing with Lycan is Savage Wolf. In draft, you're going to be a little bit harder pressed to find control, just because you can't be like, oh, I'm going to build 3 Annihilations and 3 Slays in my deck. That's just not really viable, because you might not get those cards. So for that reason, any creep that gets on the board that's hard to get rid of is really fantastic. And Savage Wolf is one of the stickiest, most dangerous units to put out on the field, because it'll just keep growing, getting bigger and bigger. And unless the opponent has some way to directly deal with it, then it's probably just going to smack into the tower for the rest of the game. Conflag, also not surprising, you're going to get so much value of it, especially since draft games in general will probably be a little bit slower just because it'll be difficult. Like in constructed, people can construct a perfect deck that does one thing really well and does it quickly. And draft, because you're much more limited in what sort of cards you can add to the deck, it's more likely that you're not going to be able to pull off a crazy combo super quickly and win the game. So for that reason, you're probably going to have longer games, and any sort of improvement that triggers every single turn will probably give you a ton of value, and that's why Conflag is number 11 on the list. And interestingly, the very first item is not Apotheosis Blade, it's not Horn of the Alpha, it's Blink Dagger, because Blink Dagger is just so insanely reliable. This is going to be one of the staple cards in just about every deck imaginable. Draft, constructed, it doesn't matter. Being able to pull a hero out of a lane is so incredibly powerful. Plus, it's got attack built in, and it's also super cheap. I mean, with an effect as powerful as blinking between lanes, you'd sort of expect a higher price tag, but 7 is just so cheap. 7 gold is so cheap. So it's honestly expected that this is the number 1 item. If I had to guess, I would have placed that as number 1 for sure. If we look over at the top heroes, this is the overall, and then we've got the top heroes, and these don't change because they're already the top. And then we've got suddenly 4 green heroes in a row. So suddenly this like green emphasis is starting to make a little bit more sense, because they may not be among the top 6 with the exception of Draw Ranger, but these heroes are super popular. And then we have Sniper and Bristleback. So over in basic cards, any new information, we have Emissary of the Quorum, Unearthed Secrets. Wow, more green cards. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how green is so powerful. And then we've got the Stonehall Elite, Dimensional Portal, sort of a mix of colors. Where's Black? Black is apparently, wow, it's not even represented here. Black is not very popular, it seems. So people just sort of pick them for the heroes. You got Phantom Assassin, Sniper, and then not popular at all. Okay, so does that, yeah, okay, so it seems that black is the least popular color in draft. We got green, most popular, blue, red, and finally black. That's not terribly surprising because, as I said before, black is the aggressive aggro color, and it's a little bit difficult to reliably kill towers when you can't have access to every single card. So black might struggle a little bit. They might run out of steam because they, just blow their entire hand, try to pressure the tower, and if the opponent stabilizes, it's going to be super difficult for a draft deck to follow up. And items, we've got Blink Dagger. The Stonehall items predictably are popular just because anything that gives health is, are there any other Stonehalls down here? Yeah, Stonehall Plate, and not the Stonehall Pike. That's super interesting. Huh, what do you know? Phase Boots is excellent at keeping heroes alive. You're going to want to pick these up certainly when you have, like, honestly, there isn't a bad time to pick up Phase Boots. With red, you use them to get in front of heroes you want to kill. With green, you use them to move around your units on the field so you can get beneficial adjacency effects. With blue, you use it to keep your units alive, and with black, you use it to avoid damage and hit the tower. So they're just, Phase Boots are just exceptional. Then, interestingly, at 4 and 5, we have the really expensive items, which I wouldn't have expected. I think a lot of people pick these just because they're fun rather than they're good, because with draft decks, it's kind of hard to hit 25 gold. I mean, you'll probably do it eventually over the course of a game, but it happens much slower than in constructed games just because you don't have access to the same unit killing tools that you would in a constructed deck. Then we've got some like good old reliable item cards like Demagicking Maul and Vesture of the Tyrant. We've got the new Clashream's Hourglass, which was just recently released. So this is actually quite interesting because Vesture of the Tyrant has been out ever since PAX, and Clashream Hourglass was announced like 3 or 4 days ago. So I wonder what course of time this was. Like, is this over the entire course of the website, or is this like the past week? Because if this is over the past week, then that's nuts. Because that means that, no, I mean, if this is over the course of the past, like, entire course's website, then that's nuts, because that means this card has been out for months and people have been picking it, and this card has been out for several days and already they're next to each other. Same thing with this. This is also a very new card reveal and is apparently a very popular one. Not surprising considering that it's, I believe 1 gold more expensive than the Traveler's Cloak, and it gives the same health, but it also gives them -3 bounty. So in a way, you're paying for one gold more to deny 3 gold from your opponent. So it's sort of like a 2 gold swing. So it kind of makes sense that this would be super popular, because on paper, mathematically, it makes sense that this would be popular. Poaching Knife I'm a little bit surprised about, because when you don't have, reliably 3 annihilations in your deck, it's a little bit more difficult to get unit kills. So maybe people are thinking they'll get the Poaching Knife as a way to like speed up gold gain, because they know it's harder to get gold. And then we've got a Stonehall Plate and the Red Mist Maul. Red Mist Maul is just all around reliable. 2 attack, useful. 5 siege, useful. Probably a popular pick in more aggressive decks. And then the Stonehall Plate and just Stonehalls in general are super strong. Now let's look at the worst cards, the absolute worst cards overall. The Seraphim Shield. All units have -2 attack. I'm honestly surprised that's not picked more. I would expect this to be picked up in blue decks, because blue decks are, all they care about is keeping their heroes alive long enough to reach the late game. And it's kind of surprising that I would have expected this to be more popular. I definitely would have expected it to be picked more than Watchtower, because Watchtower seems awful. And then we have this 25 gold. It's interesting that, hold on, what was the best overall? No, the best items overall. We have these two 25 gold items at number 4 and 5 most popular, and then the least popular item in the game, where was it? Is the other 25 gold item at number 5 slot. So this card is immensely unpopular. Oh my god. Then you got these terrible mana reduction and lodestone demolition, which is super situational. Wow, there's so many black cards at the bottom of the barrel. Black and blue. Blue has some duds. Yeah, Whirling Storm is really bad. Whispers of Madness is really bad. Cloak of Endless Carnage. It's just overpriced. That's a really expensive effect to get for 13 gold. So this is interesting. It looks like green is going to dominate the draft and black is just completely underrepresented. I really wish this showed us the combos. Like, what's the most popular combo? If we had to guess based on this, it's probably green-blue is the most popular draft combo. And by that logic, the least popular combo is black-red. Black-red in Constructed is often called a hero killer archetype because they've got, awesome hero killing powers like Axe plus Legion Commander, which can annihilate heroes in the lane, and then you've got coup de grace and sniper who can just assassinate heroes through spells. So it looks like we're not going to see too many hero killer archetypes in draft. It's mostly going to be, my guess, putting down big minions, keeping them alive with green, and controlling the battlefield with blue, and then we're going to see lots of big beefy red heroes to support them. So interesting. That's a really interesting analysis. I know that this is not the most compelling video in the world, because all I'm doing is talking about a website instead of showing you guys fresh footage of Artifact gameplay, but there is no fresh footage of Artifact gameplay, and there won't be for a month, so I'm doing the best I can. So anyways, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what you think about the draft. Did anything surprise you? Are you surprised that green is number 1? Are you surprised that black is in last place? Did you expect Axe to be the most popular hero? If you agree, if you disagree, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know what you predicted would be the most popular hero. So anyways, thanks for watching. Dabacab out.